Alright, oh man, such a beautiful day in Kyoto. It's pretty hilarious. I had all-you-can-eat Japanese yakiniku, Korean-style barbecue last night, and I just woke up right now. It's like 2 p.m. So I just had my coffee and I'm like, ugh. But super excited. So first of all, this video is dedicated to my buddy Aaron Fesser. He's an amazing filmmaker out in Canada, and he's been me and Cindy's essentially life coach, has been empowering us. Also to my buddy Freddie Prince, like the coolest dude ever, who just has this childlike sense of curiosity. Freddie, love you, bro. And yeah, so I wanted to talk more about, so recently we launched our 2 courses on Udemy, Ultimate Beginner's Guide to Mastering Photography and Ultimate Beginner's Guide to Photography Entrepreneurship. So I just want to talk about a little bit about the courses and why they're so cool. So effectively, I've been teaching workshops for more or less the last 7 years, and it's been my bread and butter, comprising about 80% of my income. And it's been one of those things where I love teaching workshops and it's awesome. The difficult part about workshops is I'm not location independent, which means I have to be in a certain place at a certain time to teach a workshop, which is awesome because obviously at the end of the day I prefer being with other human beings in real life. But it could be a little bit difficult, especially now that, you know, being with Cindy, and I want to not have to always be in an airplane, and I'm actually really bad with jet lag. I remember once I flew to Dubai and flew back to LA, and the time difference is about 12 hours perfectly, and I literally had nausea for almost like a week. So for me, traveling could be actually just very physically taxing, and it just kind of sucks too, because those are days of lost productivity, days I could have been making these kind of videos, days that I could have been writing and so forth. So doing an online course was always something that was super interesting to me. I'm like, you know, part of me felt like, okay, you know, there's all these free YouTube videos and articles and information out there. Are people actually willing to spend money on an online course? Because, you know, I think in today's day and age, we're not used to paying money for content that's digital, because in theory, it's like, why would you pay money for this? I should just, it doesn't cost anything to copy. Therefore, why should I pay money for it? And also, as humans, things which are intangible, like digital goods, it's hard for us to put our minds to paying money for it, because it goes against human intuition. So for example, you know, you buy, I don't know, an apple, and you're like, okay, this is a physical apple, I could hold it, I could see it, I could eat it, that's cool. But with digital information like an ebook or an online course or videos or presets or whatever, right? People don't want to spend really money on this because intuitively it doesn't it's just like bits in the air. So you know, there's some sort of reluctance to people purchasing and spending money on these things. However, at the same time, obviously it costs the creator lots of time and labor and effort to create the courses. So I think it's really difficult as being a photography entrepreneur in today's day and age, because especially as we're making more of the shift towards digital goods and digital media, those are going to be the ways that we could continue to make our livelihood as photographers. So not just you being what Cindy calls photo technician. So a photo technician is, imagine you're like a tech person, is that I think the word comes from Vietnamese or French or something like that, where you essentially operate the camera and you're making photos for a living. So if you're shooting a wedding, shooting commercial photos, shooting portraits, you're essentially a photo technician. And being a photo technician is obviously hard, because you have to, you know how to A, operate the camera, B, know how to compose the scene well, know how to frame the scene well. You have to capture the decisive moments, and being a photo technician is really hard work. Like, even if you think about X-ray technicians and people in the medical field, obviously these are very difficult jobs for people to pursue. But at the same time, I mean, my heart pains to say this, but I think it's not really going to be a good field for you to invest your time in moving on towards the future, because consider, you could freaking buy a high-end 5D Mark whatever DSLR full frame that will make amazing photo. You could buy the camera probably for less than like $1,500, like less than $1,000 nowadays if you get secondhand. And then you get one or two good Canon L lenses, maybe another $1,000. So essentially you could become a very adept wedding photographer in theory for, let's say, initial investment of like $2,000 of used gear, which means there's all these college kids who want to make an extra buck. You're gonna have to compete with these kids, and honestly, these kids freaking hustle hard. They know how to use computers, they know how to market themselves, they're all up on Instagram and Snapchat, and they're actually really good photographers. So, with these kids charging $500 to shoot an entire wedding and post-process, give the raw files and whatever, it's going to be really hard to compete. And this is what they call in business disruptive technologies, that as the price of cameras and digital goods are getting cheaper, it's disruptive in the sense that the old school guys, like who's made a living shooting weddings for a long time with no competition, charging like $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, these guys are going to start having a lot more difficult time. But of course there's still lots of opportunities for photo technicians, because always the 1% top of commercial or wedding or luxury photographers will do really well. So for example, I actually see one of the best sources of potential income for luxury photographers, luxury technician photographers. So to be able to shoot like a campaign for Louis Vuitton or Gucci or anything that deals with luxury, I think is actually going to be a really good thing for photographers, because unfortunately, so I wrote an essay a while back, and I'll put a link below. It's called Brave New World of Photography, and it's a little bit sad, but the trend I see in society is that it's being bifurcated and it's being polarized and made extreme. So the rich are obviously getting way richer, and the poor, they're not really going anywhere, they're still poor, but the middle class is essentially thinning out. So the middle class is either turning to the rich, or they're turning more towards like the day laborers, like people who just live paycheck to paycheck. And therefore, as a photographer, you have either two options. Either make a living as a photographer, as an entrepreneur, selling stuff and services to people who are really, really rich, aka the luxury market. So Rolls Royce, Porsche, Leica, all these companies are booming because the rich keep getting richer and they have no idea what to do with their money. So of course, just buy more luxury goods. And then there's a new huge market for really cheap services and people like, I guess like lower, more normal socioeconomic. And basically the concept is, this is how Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, and all the social media companies and these, game, Farmville, Candy Crush type games are doing so well, is that they're essentially just, I really don't like using this kind of terminology, but I'm just going to say it anyways. They're kind of trying to scrape the bottom of the barrel by using personal user behavior, personal information data to sell this information to advertisers, and they're getting like millions of users to sign up for free, obviously, because these people don't really have that much money or disposable income, and therefore they're making a killing or making a ton of money off people on the lower social economic spectrum. And so once again, if you want to monetize your photography, you kind of have two options. I think you either have to charge lots of money for what you do, like charge premium prices. I say this a lot is, if you're not sure how much to charge as a photographer, try to charge 25% more than you think you should, and try not to just keep price cutting and undercutting your competition. Otherwise, you're not going to have enough money to feed yourself. And another option too is, honestly, like my suggestion is, if you have an opportunity to do a photo gig for not that much money, I would actually just say I'd rather just do it for free. So for example, if you're starting off and let's say you want to get into like hip hop concert style photography, and you're working with bigger magazines, which actually surprisingly don't pay their photographers very much money at all. So rather than not getting paid, only rather than only getting paid a few $100 to do a shoot, you could say something like, oh, you know, usually I charge like, you know, X thousands of dollars to do this kind of shoot, but because, you know, I like you because X, Y, and Z, I'll do it this time for free, but just realize next time I'm going to charge my normal rate of whatever. So essentially that means that you're not undercutting yourself and underselling yourself, because the sucker mistake that a lot of people often make is they charge too little for their services. And of course it does help put your name out there, but then people start taking advantage of you because everyone gets to know you as that cheap photographer who only charges X amount of dollars on this type of thing. And therefore, of course, you can get more clients, but they're just going to be like these really cheap paying clients. So it's not really going to be a good use of your time and your resources. And also, this is the trap of doing too much free work too, is that if you're doing free work all the time, then everyone knows you as a photographer who just does free work. So, you know, just keep doing free work till you die. It's like, no, there's going to be a point where you have to actually charge money. And this is also a cultural shift I want to make, is a lot of us often feel guilty or feel bad or evil for charging money for our photographic services. So there's, man, this is really a toxic cultural thing on the internet, is that like somehow if you charge money for what you're passionate about, you're quote unquote selling out. And I actually have no idea where this concept came from. Maybe it comes from like the hippies, 70s, 60s, I'm not sure exactly, but I would actually say go ahead and sell out. Is that, of course, no matter what you do in life, you're always going to find people who don't like what you're doing, and they're going to find quote-unquote haters. And let's say, you know, you decide to pursue your passion of photography and you start to charge money for your services. Of course, there's going to be people out there who are going to criticize you for charging money because of several reasons. First of all, they kind of wish that they were you, and they wish that they could charge money for their photographic services because that's also their dream. Or there could just be some people who are just kind of these like hippie socialist types who think that all money should be abolished and money is evil. I don't think money is evil. I think money is just a tool that helps us get what we want and what we desire. So, for example, money for me is a tool to buy $3 espressos at a hipster coffee shop, and that brings me joy. Or money is a tool that allows me to shelter myself and keep myself from freezing, aka paying for a rent. So kind of realize that in life, money isn't the ultimate goal. Money is only a means to get what we really want. So even for me, money is only a tool for me on a practical basis, for me to pay rent, for me to pay for food, for me to pay for my travel and expenses for transportation and moving from point A to point B. Also nowadays I'm employing my younger sister Annette, so also using earning extra money to pay her living costs, also for us to pay server bills and etc. Because I don't really care to be the world's richest photographer at the end of the day. For me, I want to care about making a positive difference and empowering other photographers who also want to perhaps monetize their passion for photography and also do more entrepreneurial things. And so, sorry, like always, I'm always getting off track because that's the way my crazy mind works. So if you decide to go into photography entrepreneurship and make a living from your photography, with online courses, I would actually recommend, it's a really, really good opportunity, I think, for photographers. And I think education is actually probably, oh, that's a pretty cool looking coffee shop here. Might stop by here later. So I think education is a huge, 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 huge source of opportunity for us photographers, because consider there are more and more people getting into photography nowadays because of the iPhone and smartphone technology. And if you just look at demographic trends, more and more people are buying iPhones, and therefore more and more people are becoming photographers. And usually the way the funnel works is that somebody will buy an iPhone, start taking lots of photos of the iPhone, really, really love it, but then somehow feel like they need to upgrade their camera to be a more pro photographer, so they'll buy a DSLR or a mirrorless camera or something, and then they're looking for better ways to make better photos. And I actually would argue there's tons of potential students out there in photography who are hungry to learn, but there's actually not that many teachers. There's actually not that many workshop teachers. I think, in my opinion, also there needs to be better online courses, because a lot of the instructors online who do these photography courses, I've looked at some of them, and you know, they're pretty good photographers. They're good. I'm not gonna, you know, poo-poo on anybody else, but a lot of these instructors on the internet, especially on online education, they're really good. They know how to make online courses, and they're very good with audio-visual technicians stuff, but they themselves, as their photographers, I don't think their photos are that great. And of course, that doesn't mean to disparage them and their abilities at all, but essentially I wanted to say this in a positive, productive way, in the sense that if you consider yourself as a photographer who can make really, really good images, then this could be a really good opportunity for you to also share more of your advice, more of your wisdom, more of your life experiences to empower other people to make better photos. And also, the reason why I think education is good is that the population and people you're trying to reach is kind of a self-selecting audience in a positive way. Is that anyone who's willing to spend, you know, a few $1,000s on a camera and lenses and stuff like that, you know, these are people with expendable money. These are people with superb, who have like a little bit of extra side income. They could invest in their hobbies and their passions, and therefore I think it's really important. A lot of these people, you know, they want to travel more. So like, I'm here on the streets of Kyoto, and then I'm really passionate about Japan. So in the past, I've done a workshop in Tokyo that was a huge success. Or even when I was living in Vietnam, living this awesome life, I did a week-long travel workshop from Hanoi to Zappa, which was really popular as well. So, you know, people want to travel. They want to use their camera, they want to go on adventures, and they also want to empower themselves to know how to use this technology to make better photos, to feel more self-confident in themselves. So essentially the two courses I made, the first one is Ultimate Beginner's Guide to Mastering Photography. It's more of this beginner's course, introduction to photography, and it was actually really exciting for me to do because it forced me to take my photography back to basics, for me to challenge and question why I made photos, for whom I made photos, and essentially what does it even mean to make better photographs. And it was super cool because we spent about an intense month. Cindy was doing all the recording and post-production and directing. We spent about a month of like 12-hour days drinking like endless coffees, having our moms cook for us, and I made all these fun, exciting live demos, and there's like, you know, 70 plus videos, all sequenced in a very, very logical way. And it's a really awesome course because I think even as photographers, you know, I don't know what your skill level is, whether you're more of a beginner, intermediate, or advanced. I think all of us should be beginner photographers, because the more we get caught up into notions of like social media fame or trying to make really good photos that please other people, we end up just having less fun, and we actually end up making fewer photos, and we just end up being more miserable and stressed. And so this course, I think, will be really good for you, or, you know, for a friend or family member if you just want to respark your passion for photography. And so that kind of course, I think, is really good because it could capture a wider audience. So the audience essentially I'm trying to also target is people who are just making the transition from iPhone photography to shooting with the DSLR or whatever. So that's one thing. And then the second course, which I think is really cool, is the course on entrepreneurship. So I think this is also an interesting opportunity because I think people don't really know still what an entrepreneur is. I mean, we know self-employed, we know like I work for myself, these kind of terminologies, but I think the term entrepreneurship still kind of is more in tech circles or startups and stuff like that. And also it's one of those weird things too, is that like you're not quote unquote allowed to be an entrepreneur unless you already make like $1 million doing what you're passionate about, blah, blah, which I think is totally false. I think, to me, entrepreneurship isn't about making a bunch of money already at what you're passionate about. To me, entrepreneurship, it's more of like your attitude, your soul, your determination, your drive, your desire to take a risk in order to create value for society. And of course, obviously, as an entrepreneur, you need to make money, because without money, you cannot pay your rent. But, you know, to be honest, you could still hold on to your 9-to-5 job, your day job, or, you know, if you don't actually require an income to make a living, you can still be an entrepreneur. Essentially, it just means that you're a risk taker. It means that you're putting yourself out there. You have the courage to share whatever you're passionate about and to have belief and conviction in your ideas, because I think what's in short supply in today's day and age is A, having an opinion, and B, having the courage to share that opinion. A lot of people call me controversial. Like, oh, you know, Eric Kim's at it again. He's just being controversial for the sake of being controversial. I actually don't think I'm really that controversial. I just say what's on my mind and I just share my opinion. And I try not to force other people to believe in my opinion, because obviously my life experiences are going to be different than yours or somebody else's. I'm just sharing my experiences in the hope that other people who are kind of in a similar experience as me could find some sort of benefit. And so that's also a good way to stay motivated as an entrepreneur, is that just ask yourself, is this blog post, is this video, this article, this ebook, this service, everything this one thing I'm offering that I want to publish and share, can it help at least one other human being on planet Earth? If yes, it is almost like your duty to share it and distribute amongst other people. I've philosophized about this a lot. Oh, this is nice. Nice little urban landscape there. I might come back later and take that photo. So I philosophized about this a lot, but I think the purpose of life. Okay, I'm gonna take a step back. This is just for me. I don't want to shove this down your throat. Okay, so my purpose in life is for me to dedicate my life to keep learning truths, things that are useful, empowering, and to share this information, this empowerment with other people. Pretty simple. And the reason why I decided to make this my life's purpose was because several things. First of all, I know I will die, and essentially it's my duty to die. Even if someone gave me a magical pill or a blood boy to link me up with that gave me more life, I would probably say no, because to me that's just the thought of it is a little bit repulsive. So for me, I know that I will die and I must die, and at best I'll live to be like 90 years old or 100 years old. At worst, I might die tonight. You know, I'm allergic to shellfish. If I accidentally eat some shellfish, I might die. Anaphylaxis in my sleep, or whatever. So anyways, memento mori, entrepreneurship. I know that I will die and I must die and it's my duty to die. Therefore, I want to do what Jeff Bezos calls the regret minimization framework. Is that I want to imagine myself like 90 years old on my deathbed, reflecting on my life and knowing that I don't have any regrets of things that I wish I had done that I didn't attempt because I was too afraid or I lacked courage or motivation to do so. Because honestly, like, think about the amazing world in which we live in today. Like, you're not going to starve to death. If anything, you're going to die from diabetes and obesity. There's an overabundance of food, okay? So that's one thing. Secondly, like, if you want to live, so, you know, a lot of people, I'm speaking for the Bay Area, people, oh, rent is so expensive, rent's so expensive. If you honestly, like, wanted to live on the cheap, dude, you could live in Saigon, you could live in Hanoi, other places in the world. Like, for example, when I was living in Hanoi, I was only paying like $350 a month in rent in a brand new studio with like all of my great amenities. So it's like, you could live really well for like less than $400 or $500 a month. So it's like, so obviously that's not really an issue. It's just more of like, if you have the preference, like, oh, I must live in New York City or San Francisco, whatever. And how do I say this? I think, to me, humanity is the most important thing. I have such a deep love for humans, humanity, and the reason I think it's my duty to help other people is that when I was younger, you know, I grew up pretty poor. My dad was a chronic gambler. Money was always an issue in my family. And what I was lacking was access. What I was lacking was opportunity. And for me, I had so many amazing mentors in my local community. I was actually in Boy Scouts. I actually became an Eagle Scout, Scouts Honor. And you know, the leaders in my church community, the leaders in my schools, my tennis teacher, Greg Lowe, who's almost like my Mr. Miyagi of life. And so all these really amazing individuals like poured out their attention, their love, their compassion to empower me. And, you know, I could only eat so much every day. I could only consume so much. I could only buy so much stuff before like just end up feeling a little bit like empty inside. And then for me, I feel the most sense of purpose, the most sense of happiness and joy of just helping other people, empowering other people. And so it almost kind of doesn't make sense for me not to help other people. So like, and by helping empower other people's, I mean, essentially everybody wins, which is pretty awesome, is that you as an individual, if you're helping other people, you feel good about yourself because you actually feel more purpose in life because you're using your experiences to empower somebody else. So you actually feel like you have good utility and you feel like you're actually making a difference. That's the first thing. 2, obviously the other person is being benefited because they have access to information, ideas, or they feel better interacting with you. So that's the second thing. Then the last thing is, as a whole, humanity is going to benefit because this information that you're going to share with somebody else, they might pay it forward and it might create some sort of positive domino effect in society. So for example, like, I mean, this is actually pretty, like, something very humbling for me. So I did one of these random mumbling guerrilla street photography talks on, in street photography, you're only minorly annoying people. So I made this video, didn't really think much about it, uploaded it to the YouTubes. And then my buddy Carl Edwards from Street Shoot R picked it up. And he ended up, you know, mentioning it, and it helped empower him in a positive way, and he shared it with his followers. So obviously there's this cool ripple effect. And the tricky thing about being an entrepreneur is that often you don't even know that you're making a positive impact. You don't know you're making ripples. You don't know that you're changing the ocean. Because, you know, I did that video and it's obviously influenced and helped a lot of people. But I actually intentionally make it a point not to check my stats, not to check my views or read the comments. I just do the work, I put it out there, and I'm on to the next one. So I didn't know that I was making this positive ripple effect, but it was still happening. And therefore realize that you as an entrepreneur or you as a human being, you might not know the small little positive effects that you're making upon society that is in fact happening in reality. But just because you don't know about it doesn't mean that's not happening. So realize that you as a photographer and you as a photography entrepreneur, you have so many awesome life experiences, you have so many useful perspectives, and if you put yourself out there, as long as you're helping one other human being, you're doing a net positive good. And the sad, difficult thing of you as an entrepreneur, as a human being, is that often you're helping all these other human beings, and you actually don't know that you're making a positive, empowering difference. And I think that life thrives on all of us helping each other, us empowering each other. Ooh. Check out this really nice temple. Cute little park here too. Okay, sorry, totally getting distracted. Yeah, so the best way to stay inspired and motivated in whatever you do is, think about it this way. If whatever you create and you share or you publish or whatever, if it helps even one single human being, you're essentially doing your duty as a human being, you're doing your duty as an entrepreneur, and you're empowering society for the better. So it's pretty exciting. So often, even now, like, to be quite honest, I get a little bit nervous that what I'm doing is not making a positive impact. Konnichiwa! Oh man, these things are awesome. This is actually pretty cool too, this random little street side basketball. I love that the kid's like ringing the bell. Bye bye. Bye bye. Oh, so this is super cool. I guess the kid just passed by and then just grab this. And you could. And it's supposed to be a sign of respect. Oh, that's pretty cool. Man, if you never went to Japan, this place is amazing. Isn't that beautiful? Whoa. Life is good, huh? Okay, so now that we're out of talking range from there, I'm not going to be the loud, rude American I am. So anyways, realize that you as an entrepreneur, you have so much awesomeness and you have so much dopeness to share with other people. And being an entrepreneur isn't this ivory tower where it's like, oh, you have to be a millionaire, a bajillionaire, some freaking genius to make a positive impact. To me, my definition of entrepreneur is an individual who's willing to make a risk in order to empower or better society and empower humanity as a whole. And you know, you don't have to be a freaking genius. You don't have to be this wonderful sage. You could just be a normal human being, and you don't even have to make money from entrepreneurship. This is actually one thing that I want to push back up against, is that a lot of people think that entrepreneurship is all about starting a business and making a bunch of money off of it. I think it can, but doesn't have to be. So let's say you're retired, you're either making an income off your savings, or let's say, you already have a 9-to-5 job and you're totally happy with your job and you don't actually want to monetize your photography. You just do it for fun, and that's totally cool. But you still need to be an entrepreneur because you need to have the courage, the confidence, the belief, the zest in yourself to put yourself out there, to make a positive change and impact. And I think really 95% of entrepreneurship is just calculated risk taking, and entrepreneurship is just having the courage, the confidence, the brazenness, the slight foolishness to put yourself out there and share opinions or ideas or do stuff that actually might rub people the wrong way, that might get people angry at you, that might polarize people. And therefore, to me, entrepreneurship is therefore a state of mind, is that anyone could be an entrepreneur. You could be a janitor and still be an entrepreneur as long as you're trying to take risks and you have what my buddy Nassim Taleb says, skin in the game. The more skin in the game you have, the more honorable you are, because you actually put, actions speak louder than words. And therefore, if you're taking a personal risk to eventually help better others or society, you're a really grand and honorable person, and I salute you. And this is also the hard thing about being an entrepreneur, is that you could be hustling your entire life and you could be taking all these risks and whatever, and you could still not succeed. You could be the world's smartest person, the world's most hardworking person with the best idea, whatever, but you do actually need a little bit of luck in terms of success. So luck as constituted as having the right opportunities, meeting the right people, market conditions being right, because there's sometimes some people who are innovators who are born a little bit too early, unfortunately, because sometimes you might have a really, really good idea, but the technology or the opportunity or the market might not be ready for it. So for example, one of my buddies, Jerome Lanier, he's one of the early pioneers of virtual reality and also a philosopher on computer science. He started one of the first VR companies in Silicon Valley, and he ended up still doing pretty well, but he didn't become a billionaire, unfortunately. And then, you know, a few decades later, Oculus Rift comes along, and then they sell it to Facebook for several billions of dollars. So, I mean, what Jerome Lanier did as an entrepreneur was awesome because he paved the way for other virtual reality entrepreneurs down the road. But unfortunately, he didn't, I mean, I still think he's successful, but like, he didn't get the monetary success of becoming a billionaire, because that might have just been like, you know, technology wasn't 100% there yet, and now it kind of is. And so even for me, I'm like super lucky is that the internet, technology, YouTube, fast Wi-Fi exists, or else whatever I'm doing right now would totally not be plausible as a living. And even now, like, to make a living doing street photography workshops is only possible because digital cameras are so expensive, because I have access to the internet, because I have a blog that could reach millions of people. So realize that that's why entrepreneurship should not be staked just on your external success, because once again, a lot of this is outside your control. The only thing you could focus on is staying true to your own voice, putting yourself out there, and having the confidence to keep producing. So thank you so much for listening to my random rambling. If you want to learn more about photography entrepreneurship, check out my 2 courses. First course is Ultimate Beginner's Guide to Mastering Photography, link below. Good to re-spark your initial passion and your joy and your excitement for photography. And the second one, which I was talking about right now, was Ultimate Beginner's Guide to Photography Entrepreneurship. And the course is going to be about empowering yourself as an entrepreneur, for you to take more risks in life, and for you to make a positive change in the world, and for you to learn how to build the courage, the stamina, the craziness, the brazenness to put yourself out there to, you know, better society for the good, to empower yourself and to share that joy with others. Because life is good, technology is good, you have infinite opportunities, and I believe that you can make a positive difference. So anyways, more info and links in the section below. Just know that you want to stay bold, you got this, and whenever in doubt, smile. Peace out.